strange, you know?
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
too bad you have no skills or interests.
He has skills. You're so mean, dude. It might be true, but you can say it nicer.
He's just still sore about Justin Bieber's dick.
It's true. He's not only rich and famous. Okay,
right.
should we do this?
Yeah.
So I'm good to go. I feel awful.
Okay, it's one of your guys' intro. I think I did the last.
I did Charities, which I think was the one before
It's
last.
Bo.
shit, it's my
Sicky
turn.
Bo.
Can you guys not see the puffiness in my face?
I'll make
No.
sure to do
That's fine.
to be like Bo's.
Are you like emo shaming me with my picture?
No, I liked your picture.
Okay.
What did I write? I wrote, "Look at those gorgeous locks." You always have them
All right,
up.
all right. Sorry. You know
Let
what?
your hair down, Bo.
I'm sick.
Ooh.
I'm like having a hard time interpreting human cues. All right.
No, I wasn't being sarcastic. But that's the thing about sarcasm is that,
All right.
it's all about tone. When you write sarcasm, you never know.
Sometimes I have a hard time too. One time I said acting was bullshit, and my friend just went crazy, and I didn't really even see that coming at all.
Sounds like he kind of had a point, maybe though.
Awesome.
Acting is kind of dumb.
All right. So
Oh, did you have
Taste buds are ruined.
that conservative candidate over to do some plumbing work at your house, Bo?
What?
That was for Crofton's benefit. Bo just drank out of a mug and went like, "Whoa, whoa." Like, out of work conservative candidate come to fix some plumbing in your house.
I don't get it,
Oh, I
but
had
if you
to
guys
think
do,
about
I'm
that.
happy for you both.
I had to think about that one for a second.
Look, he's drinking pee from a conservative candidate.
It's my taste buds are fucked.
You're
Taste
what,
buds-
You're just sick. When you're stuffed up, you can't taste very well either.
I know, so I'm like, I wanted a coffee just to be like, yeah, buddy. I'm like, yeah, buddy. Fuck, man.
You shouldn't be drinking coffee at 8 o'clock.
I sort of hate hanging out with more Americans because now I'm acting more stereotypically Canadian. Hey, buddy, we're going out for a rip, eh?
Yeah, you should be. I hope you at least make fun of them. You seem too polite on that show. They were like, "Oh, I heard a bit of it," and they were like, "Oh, you're Canadian. You're gonna thank us for everything." You should be like, "Oh, you guys are American. Are we gonna all shoot each other with guns and say how it's people with guns that hurt guns and not guns?" Like, I would be like, you should be ribbing them back.
All
If
right,
you're not, you need to get me on that show.
I'm not taking advice on interpersonal relationships from you. I think you're in practice very good at them. I think your advice is fucking horrible.
No, because just think about what they're doing to you, and they're establishing a power dynamic, and you're not like pushing back. I didn't listen to the whole show, to be fair.
You should talk about Donald Trump and say like, "Hey, I like people who weren't captured."
All right, so let's get ready. We got a show going. I'd like to thank my American friends for tuning in.
America.
And I'd like to say, if
Fuck
you're Canadian,
yeah.
I forgive you for being Canadian.
There's nothing to forgive.
I know. I'm just, I'm shilling for America.
Though these days we're basically just America Junior.
Gonna see the fucking day, yeah.
Man, don't tell that to a patriotic Canadian. You're gonna...
I would be like, look at our political spectrum. That's basically the truth.
America.
Oh, we got a drama
Fuck
coach
yeah.
as one of the candidates. That doesn't happen. Oh wait, it does.
We got
happen.
what?
A drama teacher. I saw I got some conservative pablum today. They're like, Harper, hero, balances budget. They're like, Mulcair owes the government $2 million.
Oh, God.
And they're like,
I'm
they're
so
like
sick of
Justin
politics.
Trudeau. He's a drama teacher. It's like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to vote for a fucking drama teacher.
But Stephen Harper doesn't even balance budgets. He runs deficits.
It's
Trudeau's been a
propaganda.
member of parliament for like 5 years or something.
It's propaganda, and I recognize
It is.
I'm
That's
not
what's
taking
so-
any. It was from like this webpage on Facebook called Justin Trudeau Not. I don't even get why it's
Not
called
ready. It said not ready. You probably.
No.
That.
Nice
No,
hair,
it said
though.
not. That's what it was like. Literally some dumbass. Anyways, let's get going.
It said
They should
not-
do one with Stephen Harper where they do the kind of opposite one where it's like, he has a fair amount of experience in government. He's an idiot and his hair sucks.
They did that already.
Did they?
Yeah, I think the NDP release it's the thing where they're considering him as a candidate. You know, they have because they did one for Mulcair and Trudeau, and then I think the NDP did one on Harper where they're why would we rehire this guy, or why would we keep this guy on, or
He's
whatever.
proven himself incompetent and he's very unattractive.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, you can't go after people's looks too much. Arguably, that's what
Rich females are too
elected
fragile.
chrétien.
Woo!
Do you guys hear that?
Yeah.
I'm doing a sound check.
Because reasons! Woo!
All right, that killed the conversation.
Yes, it did.
Sweet, that was the whole point.
Lame.
All right,
Oh, my wife, my loving wife.
all right, I'm clicking record. Let's get going. Hello and welcome to the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast. 3 dudes, random topics, unlimited opinion, where conversation is the foundation of higher thought. My name is Bo Schwartz, and joining me today, as always, is the king of Justin Bieber fandom and pizza, Crofton Steers. Crofton, how's it Bieberin'?
It's Bieberin pretty good there, Bo. I do like how it's completely obvious to both myself and the listeners that you were coming up with these on the spur of the moment, even though you could have prepared introductions in 2 minutes prior to doing the show.
Right, well, that was unnecessarily piquant. So we're just going to overlook that and also introduce the second person joining me on this Good, Bad, or Bullshit conversation ride.
What's he going to say?
The inimitable and very dashing Michael Hodgins. Michael, hello.
Going with an old classic.
Please shower us with your dashing.
Dashing. Yeah, that's really underused, the dashing. I kind of like it sort of invokes this imagery of a dapper, handsome man running.
He
for
was a
some
dashing
reason.
young man, see?
Dashing. Where am I dashing to? But yeah, I'm glad you didn't prepare your intro because, nothing's prepared on this show. It's off the cuff, so to speak.
Yeah, it's raw, uncooked.
I just like those. I like those moments because Bo's intros are always a certain format where he's like getting ready to define us, and there's that moment where you just see the gears in his brain working, and maybe it's because I have a video, so if you're watching the live stream version or the video, you'll actually be able to see the gears turning in his brain as he thinks of these things.
That's the thing about improv, you're like, you start down a path and you're like, oh, what am I going to say? And then it either goes bust or you sort of drag it out.
I don't
somehow.
even know. It's like a runaway train.
Yeah, it's actually like, how you watch TV or you watch something and you're like, what's going to happen next? When I'm thinking about my mouth while I'm talking, I'm wondering what's going to come out of it. What strange and wondrous things these syllables of magic will swirl around your ears. I'm sick, all right, and
I would like to say something right before we get to a random topic. Just before we started recording the show, we were talking briefly about politics, and I just want to say, man, I'm sick of politics already in this longest Canadian election campaign. There's 3 weeks left, and I'm just like, it can't be over soon enough. And I was reminding myself that I'm thankful that I don't live in the States where there's like permanent campaigning. It drives me bonkers. I'm like, I really can't stand it. I'm like, okay, I know where I stand. Like, can we just vote already and get it over with?
If it makes you feel better, there's like a week and a half left, not 3 weeks.
Oh, thank God.
Oh, is that
Anyway,
why everyone on Facebook are posting these like, I will vote on October or whatever?
Well, they did.
But you missed the one important
effective.
part. The precise date in which you have
Dude,
to vote.
Dates are dumb.
Dates are bullshit. Time's a construct, man.
I hate that it's only.
Giving calendars to bullshit.
I hate that it's like one day to vote. It seems so like passe,
But they did some studies about social media and younger users were more likely to vote. Facebook did these studies, more likely to vote if they knew that friends of theirs had specifically committed to voting. So apparently that's like a thing that people are doing. But I don't know why. I'm like, I just feel like I'm not that active on Facebook, I guess, anyways. But I'm just like, I don't need to say I'm gonna vote, and like, who cares if I vote? You should just vote anyways. And you shouldn't be voting because your friends are voting. You're like, oh, I'm apathetic and I don't care about politics. But Billy's voting. I don't want him to think I didn't vote. I better go vote.
Yeah.
Who's the good one? The conservatives? I hear about them a lot.
But
Who's the Stephen Harper? I know his name. X. I'm like, no. If you don't know any about the issues or care, you know what? Just don't vote. It's not helping anything.
You should also not vote, not vote because of the opposite reason. Like, you shouldn't be like, oh, everyone's voting, I'm not going to vote. That's also not a good way
Yeah,
to
that's
make
a
it.
stupid reason
So
to. Don't be contrarian, you know?
so don't vote and don't not vote.
Yeah, exactly. Do vote and don't not vote. Okay, now that we're all confused, should we get to a random topic?
Yeah, sounds like we're primed for conversation. Very clear conversation. Everyone ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Don't be voting. Don't be voting.
I hope it is. Uh,
Whoa. Wow.
um, the topic today is surfing.
Like surfing the web?
Like tubular dude, surf's up, bro. That kind of surfing.
Man.
There was this video going around Facebook that I saw recently, and it was quite dated. It was like a, I don't know, I feel like it was from the 90s, and it was a pretty hilarious interview. If you just YouTube like surf dude TV interview, I'm sure it'll pop up, and it was some TV reporter interviewing some surf guy, and he was just like incomprehensible in his lingo of like, he was like, the Nord, it was like, dude, you gotta go and the tube's going, and you're like, what's he talking about? Surfing.
So
What is
surfing is you
surfing?
take this piece of wood and you go and find a wave and try to ride the wave on the piece of wood or fiberglass now. Like, that's basically surfing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to
Okay,
ride on top of the wave or under the wave, or is both equally cool in surfing?
You got to stand up on the board.
Well, I
There's-
know that, but I'm saying, like, is there a lame way to surf? Like, if you're surfing too far behind the wave or too far ahead, then people
Well, I
are
think
like,
it's like
man,
if
you
you're too
not
far
cool.
behind, you won't be on it. And
God, I'm not going to get a word in edgewise
Okay,
with
Croft,
you guys today.
surfing.
Okay, so surfing, like here's the deal. We all live in Canada. So we've done some snow surfing, sometimes known as snowboarding. In terms of actual surfing, what's our experience here? Because I can tell you right off, I've never been surfing in my life. Oh, windsurfing, actually.
that's
But-
different.
Fine. Internet surfing, windsurfing, but not surfing.
And sidewalk
How about-
surfing, I've skateboarded, but I guess that's not surfing.
Also not the same.
Okay, so who's been surfing?
I have been surfing.
I've never been surfing.
Okay, so I'm the only one who's done it, and I must say again, Canadian from a central part of Canada. There's not so much good surfing here, though. There will be people from places in this country who'll be like, "What are you talking about? Canada's got great surfing." There's places in Nova Scotia where people surf, and I was fairly recently in one of the surf destination in Canada, Tofino, British Columbia, which is like a surf mecca, I guess, for Canadians. I don't know why you'd want to surf there because, like, look, I've been surfing like 3 times, and it was all in like warm environments. I think I surfed in Indonesia, Malaysia, and maybe that's it. Maybe twice in Malaysia, where it's warm. But why? When I was in Tofino, and there were surf shops everywhere. It was a neat experience in Canada. You know, there's surf shops everywhere. People are carrying around surfboards, but it's like 12 degrees, and it's like this cold, briny water, and the wind's blowing. I'm like, whoa! It was not intriguing to me to go into the water with a surfboard.
But isn't the point, like a lot of extreme sports, the thrill? Like, it's not so much that it's comfortable. Like, yeah, the water's cold, but you want the rush of.
Well,
like
I
as
mean,
someone who's experienced with it, is the rush the appeal?
I guess so. Okay,
I
like,
think for sure it is. Like at the high level of like there is no sport I can think of off the top of my head that is more man against nature than surfing, or like man working with nature in a certain way. Like it's really like there's motion on both sides. If you go skiing, for instance, you're skiing down generally a static environment in which you're changing the environment as you go through it. But surfing, the environment is changing and you are changing at the same time, and you've got to work either in harmony with that or you have to tackle it. So I totally can see the appeal of it.
yeah, I would say that white water sports are similar in that nature. And I think and surfing has started to come up there too. I shouldn't say there's no surfing in sort of central parts of Canada because people are now getting into surfing on standing waves in rapids where they're using surfboards to get out there and get up and you can ride the wave indefinitely because unlike a sea wave, it just never stops. You know, you always have that wave.
Shrimpy wave though. Like
It's
must
what?
be must be a shrimpy wave.
Well, there's some giant ones around here. But if anything, they wreck you. They would probably wreck you more than I don't know. Like there's some giant waves you can get on, but it's mostly kayakers. It's only started that people are surfing in river waves. That's a new thing. But back to like the okay, so if I'm the only one who surfed here, I will describe my experience of taking a surf course, which I did in Malaysia. I was traveling by myself, and I was like, this is this place that was good for surfing. It had a point break, which apparently is a good place to learn. I just think of that movie with,
Keanu Reeves
yeah.
and
I was like,
yeah,
Point Break, what?
Patrick Swayze,
I
R.I.P.
guess that's where the waves are kind of breaking along the beach instead of straight in at the beach. There's like a point that goes out in the wave. Anyways, so I went to the surf shop and I was like, "Can I get a surf lesson?" And they were like, "Yeah, okay." And it was a place where everyone, English is a second language. And I'm not kidding. My instructors were two, maybe 8-year-old boys. They might have been 8. I would say even 7. They were little kids, but it was kind of awesome there. And the instruction was basically we went to the beach. They put the surfboard on the ground, and then one of them lied down and said go you, and they said paddle paddle stand up. And then I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, okay, when wave come, paddle, paddle, stand up. And I was like, all right. And I think essentially that's what it comes down to. So you get it getting out there into the right spot to catch the wave is its own you gotta know where to get out past the breaks and know to duck your head under to go under a wave when you're trying to get out there. But essentially then you're just waiting for a wave to break, get in the right position, and then you're lying on the board on your belly. It comes, you start paddle, 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 and then when you feel it start to catch you, you try to one smooth motion. You put your hands down and like kind of jump your 2 feet up, and then you stand and you surf. And it sounds easy, but I will say I've only kind of ridden about, I'm obviously extreme beginner. I rode a few waves, and my
I
experience,
like how you put the word extreme next
extreme
to
beginner.
to
What I
make you
mean,
sound
Extreme
cooler.
beginner.
I'm an
I don't mean
extreme
that.
beginner.
I
It's
don't
like
mean
you're
that
just
in
a
the
beginner,
awesome
dude.
sense of extreme. I mean that in the like
You're
pathetic
yeah,
sense
okay.
of beginner.
I'm a pathetic beginner. Very good.
And so what I will say is that like of my experience in Malaysia, which was 2 days that I spent surfing, I rode probably, I don't know, 3 waves there. And the rest of the time it would just be like paddle, paddle, my arms are super tired, fall off the wave. Okay, paddle, 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 fall, my arms are tired. Okay, oh, here I go, fall, 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 fall. And I would do that for like hours, and your arms are in agony. And it's like, God, I'm like, surfing, man, surfing sucks. But then the one time where you do get up on that board and you're riding in, I can totally see the appeal. You're like, it just gives you this little like endorphin rush. I'm up, and it's just you're riding this thing. It's a really free feeling, and I can really understand the appeal and why people get into it. But again, beginner.
Now I'm not. I don't want to. I know people are going to laugh as soon as they hear this, but whatever. They are related, and it is worth mentioning because I've done so much of it. But boogie boarding, which is essentially where surfing, you're standing on top of a board, riding a wave. Boogie boarding is generally something catered often to children, but it's you generally have a foam board. You jump inside of the wave and sort of ride on your belly. All the way into shore. And we would go to Florida every year as a family. And the 3 boys, we would boogie board all the time. And when my parents moved to Mexico during the winters, we'd go down there and we would boogie board all the time as well, even as adults. And it's the same deal where you go out and there are bigger waves and smaller waves. And sometimes you miss them and you jump and you try and get the waves and you miss like 8 waves, and then you get one and it carries you all the way into shore. Maybe you bend into it a little bit or whatever, but it's really really quite a lot of fun. So I can only extrapolate that if you added the standing and the risk and the being actually on top of it and like balancing, it must be quite the rush. Again, it's not an experience that I've had.
And even just in talking about this, I can kind of understand the Tofino thing. Like, 'cause so when I said I was there, I was like, well, I have no interest in going into this cold water. You have to wear a wetsuit. Like, it doesn't seem appealing to me. I mean, even if you're horrible at surfing, you have to imagine you're in California on the beach. It's 30 degrees Celsius. And, you go hang out in the water. Even if you're horrible at it, it's a fun thing to do at the beach, right? Who doesn't like going to the beach? And so I get it. But then it's like, 10 degrees in Canada and like cold water, it doesn't seem as appealing. But as soon as you become an enthusiast of something, and I think about now, I'm quite an avid downhill skier, and I'm really, I get really into downhill skiing. So, I get into the trying to go into the back country of skiing where you're hiking up hills, and some people would be like, God, talk about ruining, the experience of skiing. The chairlift's the whole point. But I'm an enthusiast, right? So I would do that. And I can understand the same thing if you really love surfing, and it's like, oh, cold water, no problem. I want that wave. And I get it, I guess is what I'm saying.
I find that and that enthusiast thing is key because surfing is a lifestyle sport. It's a sport that encompasses more than the sport itself. There's everything from surf rock like the Beach Boys to surf dress, attire, board shorts. Definitely expanded from just the world of surfing. Like surfing is a lifestyle, and when it comes to sports that are lifestyles, and anything really that becomes a lifestyle, I find a lot in those lifestyles to annoy me, and surfing is no exception. Like I do find the idea of like uh, sort of surfers being essentially inherently cool, and if you can't surf or you're not into surfing or whatever, you are therefore ostracized from the group, and that especially if you're living in a surfing culture. I'm not as much, so surfing is exotic to me, so it has that appeal, that exotic appeal. But that like there are sports around here where if you don't do them, like Mike always gives hockey a hard time. Some places hockey is exotic. It's not here. It's sort of absolutely regular sport. If you were sort of counterculture or rejecting sort of a lifestyle sport, and you were living in a surfing environment, it might drive you nuts, all the surfers to a certain extent, and the way that they think and the way that they act and the peer pressure to be involved in the surfing community. So I can totally appreciate that as being annoying. It's annoying. I haven't had that much experience in surfing communities. Mike and I visited one in Mexico when we were traveling there, Puerto Escondido.
Escondido,
Man, it had
bro.
scary looking waves. It's the only place I heard a man seriously use the word cowabunga in conversation. But
Did he use it for
yeah,
real? You actually heard someone who wasn't talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles say
yes, I was
cowabunga?
waiting for a payphone, and there's one. This was back when we used payphones. It was the late '90s, and I was seated on a wooden bench with this guy, and he was a waiter in New Jersey, and during the summer around Atlantic City, and there's a big surf community in Jersey. And then during the winter, he'd make enough money doing the waiting that in the winter he'd spend the entire winter in Mexico in Puerto Escondido, and there was a giant contingent of surfers that did that, and it would turn into like a surf mecca, surf commune, especially during the winter months here. So part of me envies that, honestly, but I can see how it's annoying too.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, like when you talked a bit about, culture involved around that sport, and when my impression, again, the limited experience I have surfing around the kind of culture is that, I think of like it's laid back, like I think that if you're into surfing, you're not fussed about time or you're not necessarily aggressive as a, I mean, maybe you are when you're catching the wave, but in general, you're just kind of like, you have to be a bit relaxed. You're going to go, you go out there, you're waiting for the right wave, and it's like, you can't force it. You're in the right place, you're waiting for it. And I feel like that, again, this is just my impression. I might be wrong. If someone who's experienced it more could correct us. So, listeners, about surfing, let us know. But you think of like Jack Johnson. He's, his music has got this laid back vibe. He's an avid surfer, and I just feel like that kind of like. His music is like I just get this feeling of like laid back. It's like people aren't fussed. You're hanging out on the beach. Maybe you're not working for a couple months because you're kind of a surf bum, and that's nice. I mean, there's something nice about that. It's like, slowing down, kind of taking life in a different pace than most of us, I think, take life at too fast a pace. So I can really see the appeal of that when I think of, you mentioned hockey as a counterpoint, and I do like to crap on hockey. I think of its culture as like ultra aggressive and sort of much more exclusionary. I always thought surfing is kind of like anyone's welcome. I didn't think it was so much like this kind of you're not good enough kind of thing. That was
But
not my
we don't
impression
know.
of having been there.
We're not like, yeah, you're a tourist in a country where there's a business to get tourists to learn how to surf. I get that, but like you're not in a community. Like we're immersed in hockey, and you have strong opinions because you get it thrown in your face every day. Somebody out, I don't know, in Australia or something coming to Canada, maybe that would be appealing. We have these stereotypical views of surfing as being open and laid back and all that. There could be tons of dicks that surf, or it could be a very exclusionary sort of group, or I don't know. I know one thing I did find interesting was when I'd be walking, like I went to Bondi, the world famous or Bondi Beach in Australia in 2004. I was walking along sort of the cliffside, and it was a shitty weather day. Like it was kind of raining, but like I knew I was only going to be there for a day, so I really wanted to check it out. It was sort of heading into the fall winter time there, and I was wearing like a sort of a zip up coat, long sleeves, and it was crazy to me. Because I was so cold and it was so miserable. I was looking down, and there's like 40 surfers all waiting to catch this wave, and I just felt like they're all wearing wetsuits, obviously, but I just felt that it from my point of view, it looked like such a communal activity, right? Like it looked like everybody is like facing not extreme weather conditions, but definitely unpleasant weather conditions, forces of nature and all this stuff banding together. And when somebody got a good ride, it appeared like everybody was like in acknowledgement of it, and there looked to be a lot of positive energy from me from the outside. So I feel what Mike's saying, but at the same time, it's hard to know, right? I just know that it is an extremely intensive lifestyle sport. People literally devote their entire lives to surfing. In the same way we did golf on the show, and there's a lot of people. I have an uncle in particular I think of that pretty much has devoted his entire life to golf, and I found that somewhat ridiculous. I find that somewhat ridiculous, but here I am on the other hand saying, "Oh, surfing because it's cooler." Maybe I can understand that people dedicate their whole lives to this a lot more. I'm willing to give it a pass because of the pop culture surfing experience that I've been inundated with growing up, the movies I've seen, the music I've listened to.
Well, there isn't anything more made up than like surfing culture, because like I think if you're someone that partakes in surfing and you meet another person who's enjoyed surfing and you both loved it, you have this common experience that you can, without really even speaking too much about it, you can kind of commiserate on. Like, oh man, we know what it's like to ride the wave. And like everything else above and beyond that just seems like the ridiculousness of anything that has a culture around it. But surfing in particular is legendary because of its like dude bro, like surf bum kind of laid back, and that kind of like it's associated with a lot of that stuff.
It
But I'm
definitely
sure there are high strung yuppie executives who like to go out on the weekend and catch some waves and then go back to being high strung and, some murderous corporate lackey, guy. So
I'm sure there. No, yeah, I'm sure there are. And one thing I was going to say is that you can't deny the broad appeal of surfing. I knew this guy years ago, and had never surfed but was obsessed with surfing, and he wanted to go someplace where he could surf. But
sounds healthy.
What?
Sounds healthy.
Well, it was just the cult. I guess the culture, the idea of it, really appealed to him. I don't know if he ever, went through with that life goal. I hope that he did. But what I was going to relate that to, which one thing I find interesting about surfing is its origins as an sort of an indigenous sport. So I mean, I might be wrong in its origins, but I thought that it was in Hawaii, or at least in Polynesia, as a kind of a thing that people did, get these boards and go out and ride the waves, and it was this thing. And there's, I don't know how many, I'm sure there are examples, but of sort of indigenous sports that have kind of attained worldwide sort of prominence, and surfing is certainly an excellent example of that, where people all over the world from all kinds of different cultures, walks of life, want to try it at least because it looks fun. And so I mean, in the end, I mean, it clearly is appealing. Enough people have tried it, want to do it. It's very popular. There's you can't disregard that.
Yeah, I think you're commenting on the fact that it's universal makes a lot of sense, because I think especially if you look at extreme sports, they're usually rooted in some sort of more modern cultural reference point, where things are invented. But ocean is everywhere in the world, so there's the Polynesian scene, and I'm sure there's the Australian surf scene and the Canadian surf scene and the the South African surf scene and the Siberian surf scene.
I don't know about Siberian,
but
I really
Vladimir Putin would be doing it
probably.
Oh man, yeah.
Did you
Russia,
see recently?
In Russia,
he played in this hockey game to celebrate his birthday, and he scored 7 goals.
Yeah, I know. That's amazing. With former NHLers like Pavel Bure. So
man, Putin is good. Why didn't he ever go pro?
I know, he would be top draft pick.
He's
obviously
a national hero.
He just had bigger things on his mind. Well, one thing when we're talking about this, I made the relation to skiing before, and I really do see them as kind of similar types of sport. In that, whenever if you go to places like British Columbia, which is obviously a ski mecca, and there's other places in the world, you'll find people from the complete opposite, like Australians, or for example, who are mostly, there's some skiing down there, but it's mostly, it's, you think of it as a surf culture. And I remember asking some Australians, why are you into the skiing? And she said, well, why are you into skiing? And my answer was well, I'm Canadian. There's skiing everywhere. I'm I grew up skiing. That's why. And then her answer was well, I guess it's because we don't have it, and it seems fun. And I think that having known some Canadians who are oh, I want to go, from Central Canada, and I want to go spend a couple years in Australia and surf, and it's just because it's so different but yet appealing to what you're used to. It has this draw, and it looks fun when you see it, and you're I want to go learn that. Because I would be curious, you talked about hockey again, and I know I like to crap on hockey, but I would be surprised at how many people that grew up in Florida would be oh, I really want to move up to Wisconsin and learn how to play hockey. I mean, maybe it happens. I don't.
No, they would. It would be. They would want to skate first, but then immediately after skating, they'd want to shoot the puck. Probably, that's what people. I'm sure that's an appealing thing for people who are coming up north. I do understand what you mean, though. They're individual. When comparing individual sports, the idea of gliding across ice on two blades is really something that I think appeals to a wide amount of people. If you see somebody skating on the Rideau Canal in a video and you live in Australia, you must be wow, that looks really crazy. If you see somebody go down a hill, the sense of freedom on skis or on snowboard, same thing. It's inherently contagious in that way. And surfing is definitely one of those sports. It's one of those sports you see and you think, oh man, I would I would at least like to try that. And I do think that as opposed to some of those sports, like it is less. I don't want to say less varied because I haven't done it. But when you go skiing, you go all around the world to ski. And I know there's surfers that would be like, oh, I like going to all these different, sort of surf meccas. Maybe the break points are slightly different, but in the end, I don't see how riding a wave like of similar size in one place would be different than another place. There are now like, and this is not to denigrate surfing or anything, but like there are wave machines. Like I was on a cruise ship and they had like a wave machine where you could get on this board and just ride this like sort of stationary wave. Like it's clearly not as impressive as actually surfing or whatever, but it's like the idea is that the where you surf is really not as important as just having access to waves in general. Like I could be completely off on this. I don't and I'm sure surfers blow all the little things out of proportion, but I find it a hard to imagine that surfing in Hawaii as opposed to surfing in Thailand is as different as skiing in Switzerland and skiing in British Columbia, Like it's different in those examples. It's complete different trails and landmarks and area where surfing, it's like it's just the water. It's always going to be the same.
Yeah, but it's I mean it is, but it's I think beaches are they're all these wave breaks, and there's, as you say, yes, there's lots of them all around the world, but I think they have their unique properties as well. Waves break in a certain fashion here or there. I would say that things like, beautiful scenery, the culture associated with a certain surf place, like, you talked about Australia and Hawaii, but then you can go to like Bali is a big surf. It's a way to incorporate travel into a sport you like, which I think if your brother is someone who's done that with skiing, where you're right in that yes, you're surfing on a wave in the same way if you go skiing, you're skiing down a hill.
A different hill. They're different hills, whereas the waves are always the same,
Well,
right?
but I don't think they are. I think some of them curl, they break differently. I mean, again, we're not experts. And I mean, if you broke down skiing, you could always be like, you're always going down a mountain. You can't ski where there's no hills, and you can't surf where there's no good waves.
In surfing, you're always, even if you go to an area, you're always going over that same like 20, 30 feet over and over or whatever, or 50 feet. Like you go out, you come back in, you go out, you come back in. When you go down a full ski hill, be it wherever, like that's a complete, and then you can go up and go down a completely other ski hill. Like you're exploring different terrain. I get the travel. You can do that with anything though. And like even golf. Like golf, you play different courses. I understand they're different courses. Yes, you get the different environment, the different scenery like you would in surfing. But I could play pool, say, on a table in my basement, or I could play pool in on a patio on the
It's
ocean, and it's like different scenery. I get
It's
it. But if
definitely not like that. There's way more variability to it than that. Like because there's timing of it, there's what the weather's doing. Like the waves are not always uniform, right? Like sometimes you might have a blue sky day, but there was some storm way off in the ocean yesterday, and all these waves are coming in, and so there's different stuff happening all the time. You got to go at the right time, depending on the size of the waves. They break differently, and I think it's kind of finding that like sweet spot of like. You got a good break, you got the right kind of weather giving you the best waves that are the most fun to ride, and the same is true of something like skiing too. You always have a hill, but sometimes it's covered with like ice or something. You want to go when the snow is the best, and it's again playing in nature is what it comes down to again, which skiing is like, and so is surfing. It's like it's a natural place. More or less, and you're going there and finding a fun activity to do in it. Um,
I would agree with that, and you could turn it on its head too. You could say something along the lines of the advantage of it. It would be that you're in the same sort of area all the time, because like I could go down to my local beach and surf or whatever if I didn't live in northern Canada or in Canada. I could go down to my local beach and surf and do the same sort of like activity over and over. And Mike's right, like stuff like the weather, stuff like the way the waves are breaking that day. So all that stuff allows me to enjoy my same area. without necessarily traveling. It maximizes my use of that space. I would say, in a way, surfing seems to discourage travel and makes you maybe more in tune with your local surroundings. Mike, I know when he's talking about skiing, he always wants to go elsewhere because he finds the hills here are too small, or even the big hills, like he would get bored of them because they're the same hills all the time. He wants the new challenge or the new thing, whereas in surfing you can always get that where you are. Generally you just need a big wave that day, so I could see that being an appeal. Like, it's a constant renewable thing, that as opposed to something that you're going to master and then need to chase a bigger challenge. You're always going to get that bigger challenge in the form of a bigger wave in the place that you live, probably.
Well, and I always think of, again, to constantly make the relation to skiing. I guess we're all a bit weak on this topic in terms of personal experience, but I often think of skiing. It's like because I'm pretty good at it, and I'm always looking for something more than I can get. I like it's like when you do heroin, and you're looking for that initial high. It's like chasing the dragon. You'll never get it because I always want the snow to be better or the conditions to be better, and they're never quite right. And I bet you it's the same for surfing, where it's like people have this taste of these perfect waves. And you go another day and something was off, or it wasn't quite right. You're like, oh, tomorrow, or I got to go to this other beach because it's got a better type of break, and you're just looking for this, and it is almost like a high when it's like, because when it's right, and like I said, I've only had the tiniest taste of surfing, but when you're riding a wave, it feels super fun, and I can understand that drawing people back. And again, coming back to my personal experience, when I think of it as a whole, and I see it's like starting any kind of sport, then it's a bit frustrating when you're learning because you're just like paddling, always not getting a wave, and I'm suddenly being like, oh man. But I guess
yeah, sorry. It just occurred to me there's one big element that we missed here, which is the danger factor, and the fact that rip currents, and the fact that there's probably more people who've died surfing than in your normal sport. And yeah, Bo mentioned like extreme sports or what have element of risk in all of these sports, but I think that surfing comes with that inherent need to chase the biggest and best wave possible. So always upgrading the level of danger that you're looking for. And there's been famous surfers that have died tragically, doing this. And then people will kind of romanticize their deaths and be like, oh yeah, they died how they lived, man, chasing the big water, whatever, blah blah blah. And it's like, oh yeah, that's part of the surf lifestyle, but it's really stupid. Like, at a certain point, just enjoy what you're doing instead of like running after like some giant Goliath wave that's going to murder you, like, seems dumb.
I mean, I kind of agree, and man, I just keep seeing the parallels with skiing because high level skiers die all the time, and avalanches, falling off cliffs. But it's like, I tend to agree. And when you see those videos of people surfing like huge waves, if you've never like YouTube this, it's insane. Like, you see these people riding these like 80-foot waves, you're like, this is nuts. And then when they crash into, you're like, what is that? Like, how long are you under the water, like being trashed around? And not only that, I think a lot of the injuries happen, you're good to point this out, based on what's underneath. Like, a lot of them will break their necks, right? Where they get thrown off a wave and it's breaking and the water is shallow and they come off this 20-foot wave and get thrown right down and their head, hits the ground, and you can be killed like that. And also some of these breaks happen over coral. Like, just imagine that, it's like it can cut you up. Like, I think some of the people that look for these things, it has its extreme element for sure.
No, and
but like, most people are doing it in a recreational manner, same as skiing, pretty controlled. You're not gonna really hurt yourself.
I feel, and again, it's just stereotype here. I feel like that you have the beginner tourists that come up and be like, hey, I want to learn how to surf. Oh, look, I'm doing the surfing lesson. But then soon as you are actively surfing, you're a surfer, you're chasing big waves. That's what you do the whole time. You're always chasing big waves. Like whereas you automatically become a somewhat of an
Man,
enthusiast.
I don't I honestly think it's hard enough sport and the degree like what we consider a big wave, like I would consider a big wave like a 10-foot wave to me would be huge. I don't the ones I was surfing on were probably not even nearly that big. But to get to the point where you're good at surfing those, and then but to move that up to 80-foot waves, and to even get on those, you need like they need to be towed in on jet skis. Like you can't paddle up into one of those. It's a whole other ball game. It's like the people, it's the extreme element. I really don't think most people are like, I'm gonna ride an 80-foot wave. I think most people are like, I like surfing and I'm glad I'm better at it. It's fun to ride waves and I'm just looking for a good one and it's sweet to hang out on this beach, dude.
It's like humans like to ride on things, right? Like horses and cars and waves and
It makes us feel free,
boards.
moving
Like,
under.
yeah, we have this like thing where we're like dogs, and dogs stick their head out the window and they're like, and they like, it's like we like that too. And
Except we're
surfing is
smarter
like,
than dogs and we can build tools and things.
no, I'm not
Are
saying we
we?
are dogs, but I'm just saying we just like the idea of riding stuff. Like, hey, we're locomoting without actually moving any of our, body parts. Amazing. I want to do it more. It's just
Well,
like,
if you think about like, I wouldn't doubt if it was always, imagine humans before, someone first tamed a horse. Yeah, I feel like we're pretty slow as animals go. You're like walking along, then like a gazelle goes by or something. You're like, damn it, look how fast that thing runs.
dude, whoever
You're like, why?
invented the damn wheel, thank you.
Yeah, the wheel is like a big thing. I feel like, humans probably spent millions of years being like, damn it, why are we so slow? Could have built a trap here, wait for something to come in it. So there's like a natural. Okay, I guess we're running out of steam here on things to talk about surfing.
Hey,
Maybe
hang on but do you think the guy who first invented the wheel, by the way, like it wasn't to transport goods, but they found a piece of wood and put wheels on it and rolled down a hill, like hill surfing? And all the rocks and everything. They're like, it's very dangerous. It's like that's part of the extreme way of hill surfing. You just roll down a hill.
I always thought that it was some guy who was playing frisbee and then realized that his frisbee could be used to like as a wheel for his cart.
Right, and then they went hill surfing.
Yeah, probably. That's probably
That's.
the
I
logical
feel like
next step.
I feel like the first thing they're not like, man, we could transport goods and services. They're like, whoa, dude, we can roll down hills super fast and it's fun. And that's like surfing taps into that like primal need to just move on things. Like
I agree with that though. Like the appeal of sports, like everything from surfing sports like windsurfing and regular surfing and skateboarding, and then
hill
there's
surfing.
like I'm not sure if you guys seen these videos of people who do like sand surfing and stuff. It's pretty cool, like and or seems appealing. And soon as you see it, you're like, oh man, that looks pretty awesome or pretty fun. And I do agree with what Bo's saying. I think that freedom of movement is what appeals to people. Unimpeded movement, man controlling with no engine, no anything. Like I was really interested in hang gliding and paragliding for a while. It was the same. Don't get me wrong, I didn't do it, but it was the same appeal, the appeal of freedom, the freedom of movement, freedom of exploration. So I can see that in the appeal of surfing.
All right.
But walking sucks, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's good for you actually, but okay. Let's bring in the farm animals and let's see what we all have to say on the subject of surfing.
Order, I said. Order in the court.
I'll go first. I started this topic by kind of playing devil's advocate because like Mike said, that sense of freedom and the appeal of movement generally is attractive to me. I love to boogie board, and I feel like if I started surfing, I would enjoy it. I honestly do. And it's one of those things that I can understand why people enjoy it. However, it's also something that attracts enthusiasm and enthusiasts, and there's an entire culture around it, which we've talked about at length. And I think part of that culture is what I said at the end there, which is chasing the next wave, the big wave, man against nature, challenging yourself. And that's appealing. It is appealing. But we did golf on this show, another enthusiast sport. And I think I said that it was bullshit, if I recall correctly. And very seldomly do people get hurt playing golf. Maybe they take a ball to the head now and again. But for the most part, it's a pretty civil sport, and we stretch to find things a little bit about golf that were negatives. We talked about discrimination in certain clubs and that sort of stuff. Surfing, it's an easier one to find the negatives because you have a culture of people putting themselves in harm's way, and that's their prerogative. That's their prerogative for sure. But I think that there's an unhealthy cycle that leads to people getting injured. Now, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, because there's so many positives associated with surfing. It's a fun activity. It's one that where there's a culture of essentially that, as far as I can see, like companionship and encouragement, and it's an individual sport, but you can do it in a group. Like, there's a lot of good stuff associated with surfing, and I think it'd be really easy to ignore all the people that get injured doing it, or the constant chasing of the bigger wave. But I think if you mesh that in there and you look at it as objectively as possible, in the same way that a lot of enthusiast sports are bullshit, surfing is also bullshit. So surfing bullshit.
God. Okay, I'm gonna go next because I want to follow up that ridiculous verdict.
Wow.
And the golf comparisons were ones that I was like, what? Like, it's easier to find the negatives in surfing than in golf? Like, golf requires
Are
all
you
this...
asking me questions because you're asking me to defend
No,
my
no,
verdict
no,
here already?
I'm
If
not
you're
talking
saying
about...
if you're saying it's easy when people die,
Eh,
it's much easier to find negative in that than when people don't die. How about that?
No, like it's the one-off things. Anyways, okay, this is my verdict. I'm gonna keep the golf thing. Okay, surfing. I'm so flustered here because of how ridiculous I think that one is. Surfing. There are waves in nature, right? They're just there. You just need a board, and you can go there and surf. That's it. Like, you don't need to pay someone. You don't need to bring in heavy equipment and change the landscape. You don't need to build this fancy clubhouse. You don't need to, like, waste tons of water making the thing work. It just is there. You just go there and you can do it. No one charges you to go surfing. No one owns the beach, man. No one owns the ocean. And I feel like that's a kind of nice thing. There's something simplistic about it, and that's, like, kind of refreshing. And I mean, back to what we were all talking about, I think we all agreed about that sense of freedom and movement that human beings like, and I think that surfing is just like a simple thing that's fun. And I mean, I don't disagree with all of Crofton's points. I think some people take it to extremes and are overly competitive and can be aggressive with other surfers, but that's, I think, largely a minority. And then mostly it's just a fun thing to do, and it's a sport you can enjoy all over the world. Doesn't really cost much environmentally or impact wise. And I think the culture of generally being like, yeah, it's laid back, hanging on the beach, stay for a week and learn to surf is kind of a nice change of pace to a lot of our lifestyle. So I think surfing is good. I'd even say it's radical.
Radical's a good word, man. I like rad. That is super rad. All right, surfing. Wow, so I didn't participate too much in this week's conversation. And part of that is because I'm a little under the weather and having a hard time concentrating on what anyone has to say. But I spent a lot of this hour thinking about surfing and not sharing my thoughts with anyone. and the thing about surfing is that I realize on a personal level, I sort of do not care about surfing that much. And that's partly because I've never been surfing. There's no surfing culture where I live. I'm not a well-traveled person, so I haven't been to places where things have happened to make impressions on me about surfing. You know, the only things I know about surfing are from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Point Break, as was referenced in the show earlier, and, you know, pop culture stuff. That being said, there is something sort of cool about the simplicity of taking a board and going and ride a wave. Like, some extreme sports require a lot of gear to go snowboarding. You need like a pass and clothes and a snowboard and boots and I don't know. You need to like learn how to be cool or something, I think. But surfing is like seems pretty like just get naked and go surfing. Like there's nothing. It's primal, you know. I came down as good on extreme sports. I'm pretty sure. I came down as good on golf. I would feel very hypocritical coming down anything other than good with respect to surfing. And even though there's a part of me that wants to say it's bullshit, and I can't tell if it's because I just kind of don't like surfing or if I'm just sick and emotionally compromised today. But I think for the most part, I'm going to say surfing seems like a lot of fun. I think maybe some of the culture's a little makes people look like doofuses. But I don't think I'm not going to hold that against the surfing culture. So surfing is good. Yeah, and I think we should do an episode about tempting fate because a common theme with a lot of sports is the injury or the sense of escalating levels of death possibility with how extreme it gets. But the general,
it's the only time you ever truly feel alive.
Yeah, the
Bo,
general sense of
when you're
tempting
almost dead.
fate. So there's that new movie that looks like it's really good about the guy who walked across the Twin Towers, who like tight-roped. Like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? But it's tempting fate. There's an appeal to doing that. And some people get that bug, and some people die tempting fate and say, you know what, worth it. So we should talk about that sometime here on Good, Bad, or Bullshit.
A lot of shark attacks in surfing too. They think you're a seal.
There aren't.
Yep,
that's one of those total misconceptions. If you think of the amount of people who surf every day and the amount of shark attacks, you may as well just win the lottery all the time because that's about what the odds are.
Well, win the lottery at the same time as
not
getting eaten by a
attacks.
shark.
There's one thing I would say is that in this show, if you do your verdict first, you're at a disadvantage because people, instead of thinking up their own verdicts, they spend their time trying to attack your verdict.
Well, no, I had already settled on good. It's just that when I heard you being like, it's so easy to find the bad things about surfing, whereas golf is really a stretch. I was like, what the hell is he talking about?
We have an entire show in which we can debate back and forth. But once we do our verdicts, you should just stick to yours. Don't go trying to debunk my verdict after I've said it. Concentrate on your verdict.
All right, I think we'll leave it up to the listeners to decide who was the biggest jerk when it came to verdicts this week. And if you want,
it was me. That's clear. I can tell them.
Yeah, I vote Crofton for biggest jerk of the week.
Well, yeah, but Crofton's saying that you were messing with his verdict.
Oh no, sorry. I thought we said the biggest jerk with regards to the verdict. Mine was the biggest jerk verdict. Mike was the biggest jerk.
Right. See, so this is far from settled. So write to us.
Let's chill out, bro.
Goodbadbull at Gmail. Write to us at goodbadbull@gmail.com. Tell us who are you on, Team Crofton or Team Michael. Tell us who's the jerk and tell us who you would love to support in the upcoming election. All right, the other places you can find us goodbadbull.com. Everything you need to know about the Good, Bad, or Bullshit experience. Links to Twitter at goodbadbull and to Facebook. It's facebook.com/goodbadbull. Links to iTunes, Stitcher, RSS feed for your favorite podcatcher. Lots of places for you to subscribe to our show. If you like our show, leave a review on those sites. That stuff's great. Also, we have a Reddit. Nobody visits it. So if you want to be the first person that isn't from the Good, Bad, or Bullshit show to visit the Reddit site and post something, reddit.com/goodbadbull. All right. I think that pretty much covers everything except for where you can find our lovely hosts. On Twitter, you can find me at Bo Schwartz with all the great stuff that I do. Crofton, if our listeners want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
They can find me surfing the wilds of the internet at Crofton Steers on Twitter.
Wait.
Crazy lifestyle. Well,
It's bullshit, Bo.
That was bad. Crofton, where can our friends and listeners find you?
Did you say Crofton again?
No, I said, Michael, where can our friends
They can find me surfing the wilds of the internet at Crofton Steers on Twitter.
It'd be funny if that was true. You follow Crofton and he's like on Silk Road all the time buying like child labor for his house or some horrid thing. It's like, whoa, he is on the edge, surfing the edge of the internet. You can find me not surfing because I'm a landlubber. and there's no surfing around here. On Twitter at ML Hodgins. Though I don't think anyone can spell my last name anyways, so whatever. You don't need to follow me. Go and ride a wave, man. Tubular, surf's up, bro.
Radical.
Hang
Yeah.
10.
Man,
Tubular.
quit breaking up my vibes. Hey,
The Ninja Turtles were really heavily influenced by surf culture, both
They
right.
were, but they lived in the sewer, man. There's no good
sewer
breaks in
surfing,
there.
dude. Sewer surfing. Is it? Do you think surfers smoke a lot of marijuana? Is that like also a thing? Like being casual drug user?
I don't know. If it's anything, again, coming back to the similarities of skiing, I would bet yes, because there's a lot of like those ski bums are just smoking weed all the time. I'm sure.
I bet you it's even higher in surfing.
Yeah, it seems like, because it's like they're all chilled out, hanging out on the beach, smoking weed. I'm sure. I don't know. I
Before
don't
they're
have any
pulled
first
down to their death by a monster wave.
pulled down to yeah, they watch their
Oh,
friend die,
remember
just
me
like,
for how I lived, man.
oh man, Brody just died. Bummer.
that
Pass
sucks,
me a
brah.
toke.
Pour one
Just
out
like-
for Toby, man, or Brody. Sorry, I'm
Brody.
high. I can't remember anything. Oh man.
Surf.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're in rough shape.
yeah, you should go. And it's funny, you didn't say hardly anything. Not only do you not like surfing, but you're also ill.
I contemplated canceling, but I kind of didn't want to because Crofton was such a trooper and did EXM with me, and I'm like, I can be a man.
Yeah, whatever. Just sit there and lurk during the show. It works out. That's why we've got 3 hosts on this thing.
Yeah. And I think you were like Bo talk in the chat because you were like, "Oh, Bo, you
Well, I
should say
didn't want it to
something."
be the whole show.
But-
You didn't say. Are
but
we
hang
out
on.
now?
Yeah. All right. Let's live stream. See you later. Thanks for watching the show.
Is there anyone? There's
sorry
no
I
one
was
on the
sick.
live stream.
I'll interrupt more next time.
Like how
And
you
there's
say
no one
that
on the
every
live
time.
stream, but thank you for tuning in nonetheless. We just love having this interaction. So, all right.
Sweet.
Bye.